today's Scaling with People podcast. I'm Guinevere Curry, your host and founder of Guide to HR. I'm excited to be sitting down with Donna Dubé here, and we're going to be talking about performance in regards to goals and OKRs and how founders and leaders can bring their employees along the journey. Donna, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. So, probably like many of your listeners, my journey to entrepreneurship was not straight and narrow, but windy and curvy. And I now find myself as a certified director of operations, which really means I sit and work one-on-one with business owners who have an online business, have somewhat of a team, want to expand and grow more, but they feel they're at capacity. They're not feeling confident and competent in leading and managing, and just need some consultancy and some work behind the scenes to make sure that they're leveraging three things: their time, their talent, and their tactics to be able to grow that business to the next level, but not be sacrificing their life and their health and their family. Because unfortunately, I did try that, and I can guarantee you it doesn't work. And so learn from those who have been there before, right? Is that we do have to have a life first and then business mindset. And so just really helping them leverage those things so that they can grow without hitting those plateaus.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that even as myself a founder, it can consume you because you're doing what you love. You're passionate about what you're doing. That's why you built your business. And it is easy to, especially as an entrepreneur, to let it consume you. And so being able to separate that and put some structure in place so that the people that you brought in that are here to support you and your vision and your company can be a part of that journey with you. So tell me, what are some of the things that you're seeing as maybe like a first baby step that a listener here is like, oh, that's me, shamefully, that's me, right?
Yes.
If a listener is like saying, yeah, that's me, what are some of the things that you recommend as a first step approach of how to start kind of bringing people along the journey and starting to let go?
Yes, for sure. So I think if you already have some people on your team already, then you have to evaluate, do I have the right people in the right seats? Right? So that's kind of the first step, making sure that the people that you have brought on are doing the things that are in their zone of genius and doing the things that they want to be doing. And so, yes, founders, that means having some one-on-one time with them, right? Book that 101 and check in with them and see how they're doing. Because many times your employees, your contractors, they have things they want to tell you. But if you don't make that open space and that safe place for them to come and actually share, they may not, right? And so you take the lead with that and let them know. The other piece of that is, does your team, the current team you have now, know what your goals are for the rest of this year, right? We're recording now, it's April of 2024, but are they clear on what the goals are for this year? And in many cases, you may think, maybe not, right? And again, don't stress about that. It's now a place where we can improve. It's now a place where we can make a change and actually bring them on board. Because, imagine if you've got a boat and you're in a race and you want everyone rowing in the same direction, right? You've got a captain and you want everyone rowing in the same direction to help you reach that goal. But if you don't let them know what that goal is and how we're going to get there, then it becomes much more difficult for them to join with you and row in that same direction.
Yeah,
so it's about setting our goals. Many of us pick a revenue number out of the sky and we say, that's our goal, right? I like to dive much, much, much more deeper when we're looking at goals. Yes, we need a revenue goal, but first of all, it should be based on objective data, right? How much do we need to pay ourselves? How much do we need for operating expenses? How much do we need for taxes? And saving some for profit, of course. And so actually, figuring out that revenue number by doing some number crunching, not just picking a number that sounds good to us. But deeper than that, what are your other goals? What else do you want to accomplish other than just that revenue number? Because to get that revenue number, you're going to have to sell a certain number of some product, program, or service, or combination of, right? So what does that look like for your business? Is it mostly group coaching that you do? Is it one-on-one consulting? Is it a mixture of some digital products and this? What does that look like? What's that makeup? How are you going to reach that revenue goal with your product, program, and services. And then break that down into, okay, these are my actual goals for the year. This is how I'm going to reach this revenue. And then sharing that with your team.
And while you're doing all of that, going back to what you said earlier, do you have the right people in the seat? I've seen founders who they do pick a revenue number and then they expect that one salesperson to go out and hit it, which is not realistic. So are you then going to put money behind and energy behind hiring more salespeople, training them and getting them on board so you actually can make that revenue number? Or do you need to reevaluate that goal? It's great to have a goal that is aspirational, but if you are also structuring reviews, salary increases, promotions, bonuses, equity payout, whatever it is, that's going to be like you are going to receive something if you meet this goal, then that goal needs to be more reasonable. Again, it can be aspirational in the sense of like a stretching goal. Like, hey, you hit 100 K this year, let's get you to do 120 this year, 20% increase. That's probably reasonable depending on what's going on in the world, right? So understanding that is another key aspect of, okay, you have that goal. Do you have the right team? Maybe the goal is that you're going to launch a product. Do you have the right engineering and product team to actually be able to execute on implementing it so that you can meet that launch date? If you don't, maybe you need to reevaluate how are you going to get there, or extending that and moving that goal out.
Yes, 100% agree. And when we're looking at that, you have to evaluate your team's capacity, right?
Yes.
So if you have some people who are full-time employees and some contractors, you actually have to look at, are they maxed out with what I'm giving them right now? And if they are, then adding, that other launch, they may have the skills to be able to do it, but they don't have unlimited time, just like you, right? And so really, mapping that out and saying, okay, if we're going to do this new launch of this new product, how much of my team's time is that going to need? And do they have capacity for that? Right.
And if they don't, what is on their plate that they maybe need to be reevaluated? Maybe that what was on, what they're focusing on is no longer the right thing for the business growth. Or it is, but it's not as much priority because we really need to move the needle on making sure we hit this deadline for launch, because if we don't, then we're not going to be able to fundraise 2 months later or whatever the situation might be. So it's okay. A lot of times when I talk to CEOs and founders, even managers and other leaders, they don't have the permission or understanding that it's okay to change a goal. It's okay to extend it out. Hey, this is still something that's valuable, but let's actually not worry about it until the next quarter or 6 months from now, because we need to focus our time here. It's okay to say, you know what, that's no longer a valid process or goal for the business. We've switched gears. Like, especially in a startup, we have to be agile. And sometimes what we think we need to do 2 quarters out, by the time you get to those quarters, that's not what you need to do anymore.
Right.
So, giving yourself that permission to make the changes, to stretch, but again, along the lines of bringing your employees along so they understand and give them context. It helps them to be able to, mourn the loss of not doing that goal that they might have been really looking forward to, or like, oh yeah, that makes sense because I understand what the business needs from me. I can shift gears and focus on that aspect. But just asking someone to shift gears without context, you're going to have a lot of people and a lot of friction happening.
Right. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that's another side of it, is that when we set those 12 months goals, we then have to go a step further and break that down into 90 days and then down to monthly goals. Because the truth of the matter is, when we look at the 12-month goals, that's like the sandwich we're going to eat for lunch, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to swallow that sandwich whole. We're going to take a bite of it. And the bite of it is what we're going to do and what our team is going to do this week to help us reach that goal, right? So take that 12-month, break it down into 90. And then every 90 days, you want to evaluate, okay, this is the goal. Am I still on track, right? Does this still mean what I want to do for my business? Is it still relevant, right? If it's not, what's in my ideas parking lot? Because we know you all have an ideas parking lot of wonderful, brilliant ideas that you want to be able to bring, right? So what's in the idea parking lot that is now really fitting and in alignment, and we can bring that into the next quarter, right? And so actually having a meeting with your team doesn't have to be a long time. But each 90 days, having that check in to say, okay, these are our projects for the next 90 days. This is what I want to hit in terms of goals. Here's who's going to be responsible for different pieces, right? So that then when they get those little tasks in their project management tool, they understand the context of where this is coming from, right? And why doing this little piece is a piece of the puzzle, helping us get towards the bigger goal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I just kind of thinking through some of the founders and CEOs I've been working with, and even leadership team. I mean, this is actually a concept that really is good no matter what size your business is, no matter where you are in your life cycle. And I think sometimes as you get bigger and you get into that, you're in the growth stage, you're kind of like a mature company, that this becomes more of a check off. Like, oh, HR is forcing me to do these goals. Let me check this box off and get it done so I can get back to my normal day-to-day job, right?
Right.
And how do we actually make these be more meaningful? A lot of the things that I'm seeing in regards to employee engagement surveys is around the fact that people don't have the connection of what they're doing in their day-to-day function and the goals that they're supposed to be working on, how it actually connects to the overarching goals of the company in a way where they can understand and tie it and have more freedom to be able to say, okay, I need to get from A to Z. Whether I jump and I get from A to M, that's fine, right? The business would be okay with that. But I also maybe I need to leapfrog and just go from A to D. But having that person have that capability, that mindset of oh man, I need to go from A to M, but I did need to go back to G and then I'll go back to M. And that's, having you hire people because they are subject matter experts typically, right? They know what they're doing. They're an expert in their field. And so letting them have the knowledge of where the business is going and how their individual goal and their role impacts that will empower them to be able to make good decisions for the business.
Yes, so true. Because, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what level you bring that person in on. We're dealing with humans, not robots. Right? And everyone wants to feel valued and wants to be able to share their gifts. Right? So they come in with certain knowledge and certain skills and certain experience. Give them a chance to be able to empower them, get them accountable, right? Let them have that freeway. Like you said, I'm going to go A to M and then back to G. You don't have to map out all of those little pieces for them. Let them play with that and figure out the best way to get there. But if they know what the end goal is, it makes it much easier for them to then map out how they're going to get there, right? And when there's a stumbling block along the way, right? Because the truth is we're going to run up against obstacles, right? And we want our team to be able to come to us and say, okay, I'm working on this, right? I'm stuck here because XYZ, the software won't allow me to do this, or we need to upgrade to the next level, or we need to purchase different equipment, or whatever, but bring their ideas forward, so that it's clear they're thinking through the process, and not that they own it, you still have full responsibility, but they're taking some ownership within that realm that they work in.
Well, and it also gives them the space to find solutions in which, as the founder, CEO, or even a leader, manager, you might not necessarily be you're not in their shoes. You're not at the trenches, or, you're not marching down the road to get to that final destination. And so there are solutions that everybody can bring to the table, and giving that space to have someone say, hey, if we could just tweak this little thing, it would make my life or the team's life or our customer's life better. And, we spend 20 minutes on this and we'll save 200 hours a week. Why not have that space be available for that person to bring that to you? And again, tying it to your overarching goals and where you're taking your company will give them that freedom of being like, okay, we're over here and we need to get here. And I'm told I need to go in a straight line, but in actuality, if I actually curve over because the world is turning, and I was just looking at a flight from LA to Singapore, and it goes up over Iceland. And it's not a straight path. I'm like, why is it not a straight path? Well, because it's actually faster with the curvature of the Earth to go in an arc way, even though on paper it doesn't look that, right? So giving employees the capability of having that mind, that thought, that thinking pattern to be able to bring other solutions. Not one person can solve everything. That was
Mhm.
the case, we'd be living in a very peaceful, wonderful, world that you find on Disney channels.
Yes, yes.
So,
And I think
yeah,
the other piece of this too is when you're doing that hiring, make sure that you are making clear what the values are, right, of your company, so that you are hiring people who can align with that. So that as you
yeah,
grow and evolve and change, they can stay with you because the values still stay the same, right? You can hire someone and teach them any piece of software that you want to teach them, right? That's the easy part. But the values you can't teach and you can't easily change. And so making sure that you bring those people in with the right values to begin with, and then, speaking with them and encouraging them along the way as you grow. Maybe there's a certain piece of the business that they really want to expand into. So we have to be able to have that open space and let them come and say, hey, I'd really like to check out. I'd really like to do some more marketing, right? I have some skills here. Can I expand into that role? But when we don't hire for values and we only hire for skills and we put those blinders on, oh, Sally Q, she does social media. That's it, right? We're really limiting our employees and our contractors to do the best work they can for us.
absolutely. And it doesn't allow you to be agile and scale your business because you put the person in a box and you might not.
Mm,
I actually, like, oh my gosh, back in the day, I was interviewing and I remember walking out of the interview and going, I would not want that job, because even if they offered it to me, they clearly show they're hiring for a skill in which they have done in the past. This is the third time they're hiring for this role because they're very specific on basically a project based kind of role. And
mm-hmm,
then once that person is done, they don't see the value that this person can bring for other projects. They let them go and hire for someone that has that experience skill. And that's not the way to hire your people.
mm,
Another thing I love seeing is when hiring managers have an outcome or multiple outcomes that they want that this role needs to achieve, and to communicate that up front, setting
mm-hmm,
that expectation of like, this is what I need this role to achieve. The person's going to know through their experience whether or not that's going to be something they can do, and or if it's something they can do with a little bit of stretch, which is fine too, right?
yeah, yeah.
So having that in mind. So let me ask you this. So we're talking a lot about, bringing people along and making sure that they understand the overall goals. What have you seen leaders do in business
Mm-hmm.
that has been very impactful of doing just that?
Yes. Okay. I think one of the biggest things is when you're going to sit down and figure out what are my goals this year, bringing on people. If you have some people in leadership already in your business, this doesn't have to be C-suite level, but if you have, fractional DOO, if you have a fractional CFO, bringing those people in when you're having those strategy sessions to work with you, right? Because they're going to bring a different angle and see things from a different side than you will. And so really, having those higher level team members in with you right from the get-go helps. And then again, setting aside time, make some slides if you need to, but at least set aside time. This purpose of this meeting with your whole team is to go over where we're headed for the next 12 months and what that's going to look like for the next quarter, right? And then
Yeah.
have time for questions, have time for their opinions, share ideas. Because even if your goal is to, sell X number of this product, maybe one of your team members has an innovative idea of something you could add to help with that, right? So allowing that space and that time for them to be able to share. So it's not just a top down, this is what we're doing, this is what I said, and it's done.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
I mean, we can send that in an email, but that's not what we're looking for, right? We're looking for that personal touch where you're bringing them in and really having their buy in and also asking them their expertise and how they want to share. And then leaving that door open because some people may not know right away. They may not have an idea right away, right? But as they get into it, as they start thinking about it, they process it, they might come up with something later on. And so leaving that door open to allow them to come and say, hey, you know what? I've really been thinking about this and da 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 da, right? And then when they bring that idea, have an open mindset, right? You might hear that idea and think that's absolutely crazy. I would never do that in 1,000 years. Hold that tight, right? Don't let that out. and, be positive and actually hear their idea through. Because as soon as you show that negative, they're going to close.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then they'll be
Absolutely.
less likely to bring the next idea to you.
Yeah. I think it goes back to what we said earlier, recognizing that you're in a different space and mindset. You've been thinking about this goal, you've been thinking about where you're taking your company for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is just part one of your part 20 plan, but you need to focus on this part one first. But you like been thinking about this for a while. And now you're communicating it out, you're sharing it out, and this might be the first or second time that these individuals are hearing it. So one, giving them time to process, like you said, right? They might need time to process. I had a individual report to me and she goes, whenever I'm a processor, love I want to brainstorm with you, but give me the context first and then let's reconnect even an hour later. Like let me just
Mm-hmm.
process it, right? So you need people, some people just need that time, can't, are not necessarily in a place where they can just think off on the top of their
Yep.
feet. So
Yep.
that's one. Two is communicate. I still think that this I still think this statistic is a little off, but they say it takes an average person 7 times to hear a message before it's fully sunk in. So
Right.
again, and communicate differently, right? Do you have an all hands? Do you have is your company big enough where you have multiple departments and each department has an all hand? So say it
Mm-hmm.
at the company wide, say it at the department level, then have the manager say it at the individual level, then come back around. Maybe there's an email, maybe there's a newsletter, maybe there's some other way that you communicate. Maybe you do a video once a week or bi-weekly, whatever it might be. Constantly communicating. Remind people in your company-wide all hands, whether, I've seen all hands bi-weekly, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Try not to
Mm-hmm.
go more than four, especially in a startup landscape when you're very agile and constantly changing and shifting. But just, remind people on a monthly basis, if you can, where you're trying to go as a company. Give them updates too. Where are we
Yes.
at? Are we successful? Are we behind? Are we on target? And,
Mm-hmm.
helping people understand where they are in the journey and how they're impacting where the
Mm.
company is really helpful too.
Yes. And I think you just hit the nail there when you said impact, right? Because that makes the world of difference as a team member. If you know, oh, okay, tomorrow I go in and I do this little thing, but no, this little thing has an impact, right? That then
Mm-hmm.
gets to deliver to the other team and then they do this with it and then right. And so
Exactly.
it's a journey, right? And so it's not a silo, a separate thing. And so really showing them that impact, I think, makes a difference, especially for your team members who they're affected and they really do care how things work with the rest of the team.
Yeah. I think
Right.
about it in a way of like a charity, right? A fundraiser. And you see like, hey, their goal is $100,000 and they got that little like measuring stick, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever they might have on the internet or wherever you're seeing it, right? And you go in and you're like, oh man, they're like really like they've got like maybe 10% is their goal. Like I'm gonna really help them. And then you kind of check in on them, or maybe you go, okay, I want to do this, but I need to figure out where my finances are for the month, or it's tax season, so like, am I going to get any refund? Maybe I can use some of that for the
Yeah.
charity. But if you ever notice, like that last 10% is the
Mm,
easiest, right? Because everyone's like, oh my gosh, they're almost there. Let me add a little bit more in to help, right? Like, so
yes.
having your team members know where you are as a business first, like, hey, we're really far behind. What can we do? How can we clear your plate to get like focused on this so we can get closer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus like you're almost there and you just need everyone to just give you like 20 more minutes every day for the next 2 weeks. Like that's feasible. That's totally
Yeah.
like we're almost there. I don't mind like, waiting until the sun sets before I sign off just because we're almost there. And that
Mm-hmm.
excitement, that energy around that. So having that information, don't hoard it, share it.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Yes.
So wrapping up here, Donna, can't believe how quickly we spent time here. Any
Yeah.
last thoughts, words of final advice you'd like to give to the audience?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing from today's is really communication, right? And as a
Mm-hmm.
leader, you may feel like you're over communicating. If you're in that spot, then you're probably communicating enough. If you're not feel like you're over communicating, then do some more. Right? Because again, those ideas have been percolating, they've been with you for a while, but for your team, this is all new. So making sure that, each level of your company is sharing that same message and you're getting that message out more than one way and keeping that door open.
Absolutely. And in a smaller orgs, there's even an opportunity where you can even reconnect, as the CEO founder is the C-suite level leadership team to go and have conversations with the individual contributors that don't report directly to you and just see
Yes.
how is it going from their perspective. You hope that your management team is doing all the right things, but don't assume it. And make sure that you're there for all levels of your team, not just the people that report directly to you.
Yes.
Well, thanks so much for your time, listeners. I hope you had a wonderful time listening to us and pick something out of it that you can take to work on and implement right away. And thanks, Donna, again so much. And everyone have a great day.
Thank you.